Just look at this thing. What a great design. Angry and intimidating eyes, a huge screaming mouth, and basically the pipes of an organ on its head. As a musician, this Pokemon brings me a lot of joy, and it makes me hope that one day we just might get a sound type. So today's the day that I beat Pokemon Emerald with only an Exploud. And today it is going to just be a regular normal type. However, this does have some advantages because it only has one single weakness to the fighting type, and Brawly comes early on in the playthrough, so after that it isn't going to really have anything that it is weak against. Also, making it better in the early game is the fact that it is the medium-slow growth rate, which is currently my favorite growth rate to have when doing a solo challenge. I think in the future for some Pokemon it may be better to have either the fluctuating or erratic growth rates, but I haven't tested that yet, so we'll have to wait and see. Alright, now as a kid, I have to say that I absolutely loved Exploud, but it unfortunately does not have particularly good stats. It has 104 HP, 91 attack and special attack, 63 defense and special defense, and 68 speed. So it's a balanced attacker with not particularly good defenses, but it has decent bulk in its HP stat. Today for a nature, I chose to go with a naughty nature because this will boost Exploud's attack stat, which is all normal type moves in Generation 3, and this also won't lower its special attack stat because I want to use that for coverage moves. Also, I'm anticipating that it's going to be useful against Steven, where I can use moves like Flamethrower. Also, lowering my physical defense never feels like a good idea when Steven is the last trainer in the game with the highest level Pokemon, so that's why I chose to lower my special defense. Alright, so now let's talk about Exploud's move pool, and honestly, it's really good. It starts with Pound, Uproar, Astonish, and Howl, and then through Level Up it gets Stomp, as well as Rest and Sleep Talk later on. However, the really fantastic moves all come in the form of TMs. It gets access to Water Pulse, Sunny Day, Ice Beam, Blizzard, Solar Beam, Earthquake, Return, Shadow Ball, Brick Break, Shockwave, Flamethrower, Fire Blast, Secret Power, and Overheat. Now you might think that it would be good to have a flying type move to counter fighting types, but there are no strong fighting types in the late game of Pokemon Emerald, so today I'm going to go with Hidden Power Electric. This will just give me a little bit more damage in case I need it against Wallace. Alright, so there's only two more things to talk about with Exploud. First is Soundproof, its ability, which basically means it can't be affected by any sound-based moves. For example, one of these is Uproar, and I want to talk about it specifically because it's been changed in recent years. In Generation 3, it only has base 50 power, not base 90 power. This was a change that was implemented in Generation 5. This move lasts 2 to 5 turns, opposing Pokemon cannot fall asleep, and Pokemon that are already asleep will be woken up. That is, if they don't already have the ability Soundproof themselves. Now this move is going to be my go-to move in the early game, and it is going to be slightly better against Roxanne than a move like Astonish, just because I'm getting the same type attack bonus with normal type moves. However, I have another answer for Roxanne because Exploud starts with Howl, which is a fantastic setup move. It allows me to boost my attack by one stage, and in my Mighty Yenna playthrough that I did just a little while ago, this move was key throughout the entire playthrough, and I expect that to also be the case for Exploud. Still, in the early game, I don't want to get too complacent because I am up against a Rock-type gym leader, and then a Fighting-type gym leader, and after all of that, I get Watson, who is one of the best gym leaders in all of Generation 3. As a result, I'm going to put the time in to fight nearly every optional trainer throughout the early routes. This gives me level 17 by the time I'm heading into Roxanne's gym, and now I'm going to test against the gym trainers to see how much damage Uproar is doing. So, against a level 8 Geodude, which is a lower level than Roxanne's Geodudes, with +1, Uproar is getting a 2-hit. So that is pretty good, I'm liking my chances. Let's try the first gym leader now. Up first, Roxanne sends in Geodude. Now, I want to mention something about the AI here, which is the fact that Rock Tomb is considered a speed control move. So once my Exploud's speed drops below her Pokemon's speed, they will stop using this same type attack bonus move and prioritize other moves. For the Geodudes, that's not really relevant because they also have Rock Throw, but against the Nose Pass, it is just going to start using Tackle, Harden, and Block. I set up to +2, and then I 2-hit her first Geodude, moving on to the second one. So now my speed is low enough that the Nose Pass is not going to be going for Rock Tomb. I 2-shot her second Geodude, and then she sends in her Ace. As I was mentioning, it's not using Rock Tomb, so it goes for Block on the first turn. My Uproar does 1/3, it hits Tackle, doing very little, and then Uproar gets a critical hit. So, my normal type gets an easy win with only normal type moves against the first gym leader who is a rock type specialist. That feels really good. Plus, her badge is fantastic for a physical attacker, which Exploud basically is, because it has a naughty nature, and all normal type moves are physical in Generation 3, so her badge gives me a 10% boost to my attack stat. Now here I just want to quickly check in with Exploud's move pool, because I thought that it should be able to learn Rock Tomb. It seems like the sort of Pokemon that would, but it doesn't, so I have to move on with the same learn set for now. I save Pico, without healing by the way. I just want to mention here that people have suggested to me that I need to make a small program for myself that will give me an alert every time I am not healing going into a battle. Yeah, I do make this mistake a lot, but I don't think that I'm going to end up programming something like that for myself. Anyways, Exploud isn't having any problems. Even when it goes up against Brendan, it just one-shots both of his Pokemon, and I really think this comes down to the fact that it is the medium slow growth rate. It has leveled up so quickly in the early game. By the way, the only growth rate that is faster in the early game is the fluctuating growth rate, so right now Exploud is leveling up way faster than most Pokemon. With all of the challenges around Rustboro City out of the way, let's head to Dewford Town. Here, this Pokemon that is already performing well gets another advantage because it can pick up the Silk Scarf, boosting the power of normal type moves by 10%. Now as I head into Granite Cave and deliver the letter to Steven, I had to make a choice. Do I want to face Brawly now or come back and fight him later? After all, you can defeat both Watson and Flannery without fighting him. The only requirement is that you have to have defeated Brawly in order to gain access to Norman's gym. With the dark types that I've played recently, skipping Brawly has really helped out. However, I just have a funny feeling that Exploud is not going to have a problem, so let's try the fight. This might end up being a mistake. So I think the best chance for victory here is setting up on turn 1 with Howl and then hoping for a sweep with Uproar. Also, the Machop has a chance of using Bulk Up, but in this case it doesn't. It goes for Karate Chop, and Exploud actually tanks it pretty well. On the next turn, I go for Uproar, cross my fingers, and hope that it gets the one hit. And it does. Alright, so the Meditite only has a little bit more defense, but it doesn't know any damage dealing moves other than Focus Punch, so I am gonna knock this one out as well. And with no critical hits, I have made it to Brawly's ace, the Makuhita. Okay, so is Uproar going to do enough damage? And the answer, surprisingly, is yes. I did not expect this, so I just swept his team with a series of 3 one-hits, and I didn't even get a single critical hit. So Exploud was able to do that consistently, because there's no way the Machop would have finished me off even if Karate Chop got a critical hit. And once again, after the gym leader, I don't really get any other good moveset upgrades. It's getting really old having to use Uproar on everything. Both Pound and Astonish are essentially dead weight right now, and yeah, Howl is the only good move I have access to. On the Slateport Beach, I have a chance to learn Supersonic, which is obviously completely trash, so I'm going to say no to that. I defeat the Team Aqua in the museum, and now I am going to make one moveset upgrade by teaching Swagger with the move tutor in this city. The reason I'm learning this now is this move can be very helpful against Watson's Magneton. After all, it is not going to be hitting you with physical moves, and Swagger boosts attack, meaning that it will deal more damage to itself in confusion whenever that happens. After that, I head to the Trick House, grab myself a rare candy, and then train on all of the trainers in the surrounding region. With them out of the way, I'm going to have to face Brendan again. Now, his Combuskin in this fight will have a fighting type move in the form of Double Kick. I think in retrospect, I probably should have set up against the Wingull, but I don't and just knock it out in one turn with Uproar. Next, he sends in his ace, Combuskin. I am locked into Uproar at this point, almost get the KO. It sets up Focus Energy, and I take it down on the next turn. Alright, so all that's left is Lombre, and of course this thing is easy to take out, so that is another easy victory for Exploud. However, Watson is coming up next, and I'm assuming that that's going to be my first reset. I'm really hoping that I won't have to teach Rock Smash to defeat him, because unlearning this as late as Lily Cove City never feels particularly good. And then my training finally gives me another good move in the form of Stomp, which I put in the place of Pound. I train in the surrounding region all the way up to level 33, then I give Exploud a Cherry Berry, and with that, I am ready to face Watson. Up first is the Voltorb. Now the only way this thing can paralyze you is with Spark. Because of Exploud's berry, I think that I should just set up here until I get paralyzed. That's going to give Stomp the best damage ranges throughout the rest of the fight, and I'm able to get all the way to +4 before knocking the Voltorb out. Okay, so up next is the Electrike. Now this thing does no static, and Stomp makes contact, so I could become paralyzed here again. But luckily for me, I don't, and then Watson sends in his Magneton. Okay, so this Steel type resists Stomp. How much damage is it going to do? And in this case, it does enough to knock it out. Exploud, you are really impressing me. Also, it outspeeds the Manectric, and I easily get a one-hit. This is an outstanding performance. I have no resets after Watson. Roxanne resisted my attacks, Brawly had a type advantage, Watson's most difficult Pokemon resisted my attacks. I expected some problems in this early game, but so far, there have been none. Now Watson's badge gives me a boost to my speed stat, which is going to be very useful, and I also get the TM for Shockwave, which Exploud can fittingly learn. I put it in the place of Uproar, and now I have an answer whenever my accuracy is lowered. Heading north of Mauville City, I want to mention the interview couple. As a kid, for whatever reason, I loved fighting them. I would just travel around the region and fight them in all the different locations and answer their little interview questions. I thought it was so much fun. And their team is the first time that I got acquainted with the Exploud line, and that's where I absolutely fell in love with it. I actually remember in my very first Pokemon Ruby save that I trained up a Whismur just to get an Exploud because I liked its design so much. Now these days, I don't really think of Exploud being a powerful Pokemon. However, it is clearly out to prove itself in this playthrough. Also on this route, I'm going to get a small upgrade to my normal type move, so I'm going to teach Secret Power in the place of Stomp. This move has a 30% chance to cause paralysis, plus it has slightly higher base power. Now it's time to face Maxie at the top of Mount Chimney, and here I am doing this fight because I want to get another moveset upgrade. I can teach Return in the place of Secret Power with the TM, but only once I've cleared this location and been able to retrieve the Meteorite, which you use to exchange for the TM. Things are a tiny bit annoying here because the Mightyena intimidates me, plus it uses Sand Attack. I use Shockwave to KO it. He sends in Zubat next. Of course, this thing is a one-hit with Shockwave, so now we're moving on to his final Pokemon, the Camerupt. In this case, I'm going to have to use Secret Power to knock it out. Because of the type of terrain that I'm on right now, I get Confusion with this move, the Camerupt hits itself, does no damage, and I finish it off. Okay, so I backtrack to Fall Arbor Town, pick up the TM for Return, and teach it in the place of Secret Power. After that, I head to Lavaridge Town, picking up the Charcoal, which I think could be useful for later. After all, Exploud does learn a lot of good Fire-type moves. However, it's not useful right now, because up next is Flannery. This battle is typically very simple when your Pokemon has a setup move because her lead Pokemon, Numel, is absolutely terrible. In this case, I wasn't sure how much I should set up against her. I figured that +1 would probably be enough, after all Return is very powerful. However, I make an input mistake and use Shockwave on the Numel, so yeah, that's one wasted turn. However, after that, I am able to KO it, the following Slugma, as well as the Camerupt. That leads me to her final Pokemon, Torkoal. Now, this thing has incredible defenses, so it survives my hit on Red. However, Body Slam doesn't do very much, it doesn't paralyze me. Flannery gets annoying, using 2 Hyper Potions in a row, wasting my time. However, eventually Exploud is able to get the KO and take the victory. Now as I backtrack through the center of the map towards Norman, I just want to point out the time. Exploud is on course to clock in with the best results yet in Pokemon Emerald. When I set out to do this playthrough, I didn't think that that was going to be the case, so I am quite surprised. Now, I want to just quickly reflect on something that I kind of alluded to at the beginning of the video, which was the fact that Exploud was most likely to struggle in the beginning sections of the game. Roxanne, Brawly, and Watson. With them out of the way, what is going to stand in this thing's way? I think theoretically Tate Liza could pose a problem because it's 2 Pokemon against 1, and then beyond that the champion Wallace is quite good, and Exploud doesn't really have any exceptional moves against him. Anyways, I think I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. I have what is sometimes a difficult fight coming up right now anyways, so let's head into the battle against Norman. To start this fight off, I want to avoid setting up because the Spinda can cause confusion, and this will only get worse if my attack is boosted. I use Return and knock his lead out on the first turn. Okay, next he chooses to send in his ace, Slacking. I'm going to go for Shockwave, which deals special damage. This is to make sure that I am potentially countering his use of counter. On the next turn when he's loafing around, I can easily use Return for maximum damage. Then Slacking does Facade. I just go for Howl here to get a little bit more damage in case Norman heals. And then I use Return to get the KO. And from here, things are going to get easier. I get a KO, have the chance to learn Hyper Beam. This is actually learned at a fairly low level, only level 40. However, unlike in Generation 1, this move is not very good. After all, you have to recharge after using it, so I'm going to say no to it today, even though it has a ridiculous 150 base power. After that, Norman sends in his last Pokemon, and once again, I get a one-hit. So, I earned myself the 5th badge, which boosts my defense stat by 10%, and Exploud still has 0 resets. 0 resets! I cannot believe it! And at this point in the playthrough, I am going to get access to some seriously fantastic moveset upgrades. I can use Surf to head east of Dewford Town, where I grab the TM for Ice Beam, which I teach immediately in the place of Swagger. Also after this, on my way backtracking through Slateport City, I can pick up the TM for Hidden Power Electric. In this case, I'm not going to teach it right away, even though it would be a base power upgrade over Shockwave, but I think the chance to bypass accuracy checks is just a little bit better. After all, an electric move is going to be best against Winona's Skarmory, and it does no sand attack. Throughout the next section of the game, I have no problems. Exploud easily defeats all of the Aqua members in the Weather Institute. I get the Mystic Water here, but I don't think it's going to be particularly useful. After all, Water Pulse has got to be one of the worst Gym Leader TM rewards. You get it after the 8th gym, and it is base 60 power. How is that going to be useful? You have Surf by this time. I really don't know what they were thinking. Anyways, after that I defeat Brendan, make my way to Fort Tree City, and into the gym to face Winona. Will this battle be another easy sweep for Exploud? Well, it starts off that way because I one-hit the Swablu with Ice Beam, avoiding Perish Song, and then she sends in Tropius, which takes 4 times damage, so I easily one-hit it as well. Okay, time for the nuisance itself, Pelipper. This time though, it does what I expect it to do. It goes for Protect, I use Howl, and then I knock it out with Shockwave. Honestly, it is very rare that this thing cooperates with me. Also, it is worth noting now that the Howl that I got is going to be absolutely useless because I'm going to be using special moves on both the Skarmory and the Altaria. So still, Pelipper is annoying in its own way. The Steel type is next, and I'm going to use lots of Shockwaves here. It does hit me with one Sand attack, which doesn't impact how I match up against it. Winona delays the knockout using Hyper Potions, but eventually I take it down and move on to her ace, Altaria. With -1 accuracy, I have a 25% chance to miss my Ice Beam. In this case, I don't, and Altaria goes down. So, with no resets, Exploud wins itself the 6th badge. It's now time for some Hoenn sightseeing on what is the most beautiful route in the entire game. After that, I head into the most depressing place in the entire game, dodge the guy with Wobbuffet, and grab myself the Shadow Ball TM, which is going to be useful very soon. I still do have a few things to do though. I defeat Maxie fairly easily, I defeat Matt fairly easily, then I head into Shoal Cave, picking up both the Nevermelt Ice as well as the Shell Bell. These 2 items are fantastic, and you also get a rare candy when you come in here, so I'm finding that it is usually just a good idea to explore this location. After that, I teach Shadow Ball in the place of Shockwave, and now I'm ready to take on Tate and Liza. Now against them, I am not sure if Shadow Ball is going to be guaranteed one-hits, so on the first turn I set up Howl once to boost its damage. Earthquake only does a small amount of damage to my Exploud, and then on the second turn I strike back with Shadow Ball, one-hitting the Claydol. Okay, next they send in Lunatone. Now the Xatu loves to spam Calm Mind so much, so I figured I should knock the Lunatone out so it can't hit me with a move like Hypnosis. I finish it off with a single Shadow Ball, they send in Soul Rock next, and then Xatu uses Confuse Ray. Okay, so I should probably knock it out now. I go for Shadow Ball, Confusion doesn't mess me up, and I knock the Xatu out. Now targeting it was good for another reason, because the Soul Rock loves to set up Sunny Day on the first turn it's in battle, so that it can synergize with moves like Solar Beam and Flamethrower. It goes for it, I use Shadow Ball, Confusion once again does not mess me up, and I take a no reset victory over Tate and Liza. Yes, this is going so well. And it is going to continue that way, because in the Space Center I have no reset in the mandatory battle against Maxie alongside Steven, and then I defeat Archie very easily. Rayquaza comes in and jealously saves the day because it wishes it could have got this good of results when I used it last year. After that, I pick up the Brick Break TM, and now I am ready to take on the last gym leader. So for Juan, the strategy is so simple. Give a Person Berry, set up until the Love Disc confuses you, and unfortunately it happens early on into this fight because I only get +1. Okay, so I guess the best choice here is to just go for the sweep and see if it works. I knock out the Love Disc, the Whiscash, the Celio, and the Crawdaunt, all in a series of one-hits, making it to Juan's ace, Kingdra. Okay, this thing is obviously gonna survive. And surprisingly, no, it does not survive. Exploud knocks it out in a single hit, so that is a reset-free playthrough up until this point. I think the next time I do a casual playthrough of Pokemon Emerald, I am going to be picking up a Whismur early on. Okay, so now it is time to get prepared for the League. In this case, I thought about getting another Ice Beam TM from the Game Corner so that I could let Exploud learn Rest when it does through Level Up at level 55. However, in the end I decided against this because I don't know if I'm going to accumulate another 80,000 Pokédollars by the time I've done the League, and I'm probably going to need Flamethrower against Steven Stone. As a result, when I'm facing Wally, I have to say no to Rest, even though it is my favorite move. Also, for all of you out there who are working really hard, just a friendly reminder, get some rest when you need it. It's really important. Usually with rest, you're able to overcome extreme obstacles, especially, for example, like the champion in Yellow version. Alright, so with Wally defeated and Victory Road cleared, now let's head into the Elite Four. Sydney's first. Now this video was filmed before I learned that I should not be using a Person Berry in this fight, so please forgive me. However, his AI is nice to me, and he just goes for Double Edge on the first turn, so I'm able to normalize my attack stat from his Intimidate, and then move on with no Sand attack. Okay, next he is going to send out both of his Grass-type Pokemon, and against both of them, I'm going to use Ice Beam, securing 1-hits. However, the following Crawdaunt, which by the way was an absolute beast in my playthrough of it, go and check that video out if you haven't seen it. That is another dominant performance in Pokemon Emerald. It does survive here. He tries to save it with full restores. Unfortunately for him, he fails, and I move on to his ace, Absol. For it, I go for Return. It has less defense than the Crawdaunt, and I secure myself the 1-hit. So Exploud's streak is continuing. Okay, so let's go into the fight with Phoebe. This strategy is easy. Set up Howl on the first turn when the Dusclops uses Protect, and then sweep with Shadow Ball. While I do that though, I want to mention the fact that normal types learning Ghost moves feels so strange. It really felt like when they set up the type chart, they wanted to make it so that normal types and ghost types just couldn't interact at all. Ghost types can't deal damage to normal types, and normal types can't deal damage back to ghost types. So I guess the argument could be made if ghost types get normal type moves, then normal types should get ghost type moves, but I don't really think that makes sense. Like if we take horror movies, for example, please sponsor me, Shudder. My fiance loves horror movies. Anyways, if we take horror movies for an example, ghosts can sometimes interact with the physical world, so they can use normal type moves, but normal humans and stuff usually struggle to fight back against ghosts. So I do find it fundamentally strange that Exploud can use this move, but it allows me to take an easy victory over Phoebe, so I shouldn't complain. Next, of course, is Glacia. Now, I could have taught Brick Break in this case, but often I don't want to teach this move if I want to save it for Steven, because it's not very useful against Drake or against Wallace. Plus, there is another easy path to victory here against Glacia. If you examine my held item, I am using the Cherry Berry, and this is because the Celio only can inflict one status condition, which is paralysis through the use of the move Body Slam. What I've really been learning during this Emerald series is that figuring out exactly how to set up during fights is key for solo challenges. For example, in Pokemon Emerald, there are a lot of first Pokemon on trainers' teams that use the move Protect that you can set up against, and then there are other trainers where you can use an item to allow you to set up and avoid a status condition. Additionally, many of you mentioned it to me in the comments that I should be setting up on turns that I think they are going to use items like Full Restores, and yeah, I am still working on including that one into my play. I am not very good at it yet, so I'm sorry if it causes frustrations every time I don't do that. In this case against Glacia, I was able to get only to +2, however Return is such a fantastic move that it gives Exploud the easy sweep over her entire team. Okay, I made it to Drake. No resets. A time under an hour and 40 minutes. This is incredible, like all of you who are watching this video. And the incredible performance is not going to stop during this next fight, because I have Ice Beam for Drake. 4 of his Pokemon take super effective damage from this, and of those, 3 of them take 4 times damage. I'm sure someone is going to comment on how my first turn against Shelgon went, especially after the little speech I gave during the Glacia fight. Yeah, I'm human. I make a lot of mistakes. No, I do not do this to make the content better. Objectively, I think it makes the content worse. Anyways, in this case, I don't think it really impacts the fight. The Kingdra does survive 1 hit from return, and I think it might have anyways, even if I had +1. Either way, it just goes for Dragon Dance, he heals it, it goes for Dragon Dance again, and then I knock it out. After that, I have 2 1-hits with Ice Beam, and now Exploud has made it all the way to the champion without a single reset. My first concern in this battle is how much damage Water Spout is going to be able to deal to me. So I choose Return to deal damage to the Wailord and ensure that it doesn't deal massive damage back to me. After that, Wallace is going to use a full restore, so yay, I can set up with Howl here for free. After that, Return KOs, Tentacruel is next, and once again I get the 1-hit. Okay, so it's time for the Ludicolo, and the Wailord was able to set up the Rain. This thing's ability is Swift Swim, so it moves first and deals damage with a boosted Surf, which does about a third. I think that might be the most damage I've taken in a single hit for this entire playthrough. After that, I strike back and knock out the strange, happy sombrero pineapple thing in a single return. After that, I 1-hit the Whiscash, and then Gyarados comes out, intimidating Exploud and lowering its attack. This causes Return to fail the 1-hit, Gyarados goes for Earthquake, doing a lot of damage, and I got a crit? Are you kidding me? So, after what feels like an incredible streak, Exploud gets its first reset here against the champion. However, that is mostly a fluke loss. This fight is not some incredibly complex Rubik's Cube. I just need to set up more early on. This time, the Wailord didn't set up Rain Dance, so I'm able to set up on the Ludicolo and then use Rest to heal against it. After that, I have +3, so when the Gyarados comes out, it only lowers me to +2, which gives me the 1-hit against it, as well as the following Milotic. So Exploud defeats Wallace with a time of 1 hour, 38 minutes, and 7 seconds with 1 reset at level 66. This took 6 hours and 16 minutes of game time. However, as a normal type who wants to be using Return and Howl, with Steven coming up next, I think that the road might get a little bit more bumpy. Now, because Steel and Rock types have such excellent physical defense, I figured that going for a special moveset here might be best. After all, I can teach Flamethrower in the place of Return, and Sunny Day in the place of Howl. After that, I use Rare Candies all the way up to level 73, and now I am ready to take on Steven Stone. First is Skarmory. I go for setup with Sunny Day, and then use Flamethrower, and surprisingly I get the 1-hit. Alright, that's great. Next he sends in Armaldo, and unfortunately for me, Flamethrower is doing less here, less than half actually, which is really bad. Also, this thing is doing a lot of damage to Exploud, and while I am trying to heal with Rest, it just does eventually end up edging me out. Okay, so that is my second reset. Now I want to direct your eyes up to the time in the top left, because the next fight is so long. So many of Steven's Pokemon, I have to stall out by using Rest over and over and over again. Now, I wish I could say that this fight was the one that was teaching me that special moves aren't going to work as well as I want them to. However, it took me many more losses to finally clue in that I should be using a physical move in combination with Howl. My first choice was keep Flamethrower for super effective damage against Pokemon like the Metagross as well as the Skarmory, and then use Brick Break in combination with Howl for a bunch of the other Pokemon, which can be useful because I'm able to break his screens. Now, once I do knock out the Claydol, the Aggron as well as the Cradily are both completely trivial for Exploud. However, Steven saves his Metagross for last, and against it, I am doing uninspiring damage, just over half. My Exploud has about the same amount of health left over, and that isn't enough to survive Metagross's hit. Now, I had what I think is an error in judgment here. I thought that in the last fight I didn't plan accordingly for the Metagross, and if I made it back to it with full health, I would survive its hit and just be able to easily knock it out. However, getting back to it is the problem. Using Rest to stall means that eventually the opponent's Pokemon are going to get critical hits, and when this happens, they're going to knock Exploud out. I think overall, my biggest piece of learning from this playthrough is deconstructing the fact that using physical moves on Steven is a bad choice. When I have access to fighting type moves, as well as ground type moves, I should utilize them. So eventually, I decide to use both Brick Break and Earthquake in combination with each other to make Steven a lot easier. Now this still doesn't make the Skarmory or the Clay Doll much better, but once I knock out the strange, like Psychic Doll, this thing is really creepy by the way. Anyways, once I finish it off, things are much more straightforward. Earthquake does 4 times damage to the Aggron. I should have used Brick Break against the Cradily, but Earthquake does more than enough damage, and then I can easily finish off Steven's ace with a ground type move and clock in with my final time. By the way, these results I am a little bit underwhelmed in. Exploud clocks in with a time of 1 hour 59 minutes and 2 seconds, with 10 resets at level 74. This took 6 hours and 48 minutes of game time. Alright, I'm gonna completely admit it here. I messed up with this playthrough, especially against Steven, and I dropped a lot of time right at the end as a result. I think that there's actually potential for Exploud to clock in with a time under 1 hour and 45 minutes here. Now, I would have needed good luck against Steven, but it was possible if I had figured out the correct moveset right away. Still, the results it was able to earn itself are fantastic. It is 3rd place overall if we rank it based on real time in my tier list. In general, this first series with fully evolved Pokemon in Emerald version is just to get a sense for the game, as well as to report all of my first attempt results, so I'm not going to adjust Exploud's results in any way based on my bad play. In the future, of course, this thing will be featured in a Versus video, and once I'm doing multiple playthroughs, we will get a chance to see it again, and I think that it might get a reset-free playthrough when that happens. Now, where do its results place it in terms of game time? Now, unfortunately for this thing, it is slightly slower than Crawdaunt, only 6 minutes behind. However, a 2nd place finish is still fantastic. Now here, I want to mention the fact that if you made me choose between Crawdaunt or Exploud for a solo playthrough where I had to get a very good time with only 1 attempt, with no more optimization, I would definitely pick Exploud. The reason is that Crawdaunt just felt a little bit more flimsy, whereas Exploud felt very robust. Now recently I have released my Generation 1 overlay to try and get more people into solo challenge running. Some of you suggested that I should have sold this software because like everything costs money now, and I disagree. My reason for providing it free is that I really want to get more people into playing solo challenges because they are so much fun, and I just want to spread the joy more than anything else. Right now, I don't have the time to release either my Generation 2 or Generation 3 overlays to the public, but if you still want to play a solo challenge in Generation 3, I would highly recommend trying out Exploud, especially if you don't have much experience. This thing is absolutely fantastic, and it gives a great, easy first playthrough to get into this format with. Now, I'm sure a lot of you grew up watching TV like I did. By the way, I do not actually have a cable subscription anymore, so I do not watch TV. But one thing I want to mention about old school TV is the fact that at the end of every episode, they're like, coming up on next week's episode. And then they'd play like all the most hype moments from the next episode, and it would get you so jazzed about what was coming next. So yeah, here's what's coming up in my next Emerald playthrough, because it is going to be with Hariyama. The reason I chose it next is it sort of feels like Exploud's counterpart. It is a mono fighting type, which counters the normal type. They have a similar design language. They're both sort of like these like chunky, beastly looking things that are very intimidating. And I felt that it was also time to play Generation 3 with a mono fighting type. After all, Breloom was really held back by its grass typing. So like, subscribe, and ring the chime echo so you're notified when that video comes out. If you support me on Patreon or through YouTube memberships, thank you so much. It means the world to me. If you made it this far in the video, you're incredible. I'll see you in my next one.